Here's what I want to do. Chris, I'm going to give this to you. I thought that question might come up. All right, here it is. This is a list which will be on our website tonight of how we pay for every program that we have developed.
That was Senator Bernie Sanders at last night's CNN town hall addressing the oft-asked question of, how are you going to pay for that? You know, as if we haven't heard that, of course, ad nauseum ever since, or every time someone brings up a progressive policy. How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? I mean, it sounds great, but how are you going to pay for it? I mean, we can't afford it. I don't know, Chris. Maybe we should, I don't know, stop giving the military $750 billion a year to bomb brown kids for oil. That would be a great start. Maybe then we could afford some, I don't know, health care for sick children and adults who are forced to ration their insulin. I mean, the entire framing bothers me because it's very conservative. And there's a reason it is brought forward. It was thought up by these think tanks and brought forward by people in the industry who would rather put their profits over the health and well-being of its citizens. So, and they're the ones who also say, no, we can't when it comes to universal health care, free college, but yes, when it comes to tax cuts for corporations and more endless warfare. And so, to answer the question, by the way, because he handed Cuomo a sheet, and I am now going to read some of that on how to pay for example, Medicare for all. Now, first, they would create a 4% income-based premium paid for by employees, working people, right? So that's a tax increase on Americans, and at least he's being honest about this and saying, yes, we will raise taxes on American families. Now, there's an exemption in this. They exempt the first $29,000 of income for a family of four, so it won't hit the poorest Americans, right? Now, again, he's not BSing you and saying that, oh, no tax increases on the middle class. We're going to pay for this by only hitting the rich. Well, that's not realistic. And he's honest about that. He didn't pull an Elizabeth Warren and say, hey, no, well, we're going to totally not tax the middle class and somehow make this work. Now, the thing is that while there is a tax increase on the middle class, the average American family will end up saving money. Now, there are some details here. For example, in 2008, the typical working family paid an average of $6,015 in premiums to private health insurance companies. Under this option, a typical family of four earning $60,000 a year would pay a 4% income-based premium to fund Medicare for all on income above $29,000. So that's marginal. And that equals out to about $1,240 per year. Now, if you do the math, right, normally they now pay about $6,015. That is, that's premiums. That doesn't involve deductibles and copays, right? That's just in premiums. Well, this 4% tax that will go to fund Medicare for all actually saves them quite a bit of money. And by the way, families of four making less than $29,000 a year don't pay this at all. Now, the estimated money raised would be $4 trillion over 10 years. And so that would raise that revenue to then pay for Medicare for all. Now, there are more details about this. They would also impose a 7.5% income-based premium paid for by employers that exempts the first $1 million in payroll in order to protect small businesses. So that's important because, again, these small businesses are the most hurt, right? Or would be the most hurt by an increase of taxes. They're also the least likely to be able to offer insurance plans to their employees. Well, now those small businesses are exempt from paying that and no longer have to support and actually provide health insurance to their employees if they can afford it. So now the details on this go back to, again, from 2018. Employers paid an average of about $14,000 in private health insurance premiums for a worker with a family of four. Under this option, employers would pay a 7.5% payroll tax to help finance Medicare for all. Just $4,500, a savings of more than $10,000 per year. That savings, of course, is good for business because they no longer, again, are required or will have to pay for their employees' insurance costs directly or share costs. So that's interesting, right? That's also money that can either be reinvested into the business or go to, more importantly, employee pay and benefits. Not only that, but workers who lose their jobs, if the company decides they need to downsize, will not lose their health insurance, and so they'll still be covered. Or if there are people that decide they want to either reduce their hours or move to a different career, or even start their own businesses and their own ideas, and still will be covered by health insurance. Now, raising the business tax on this would raise about $5.2 trillion over the next 10 years. Now, you would also eliminate health tax expenditures, which would no longer be needed under Medicare for All. That would raise about $3 trillion over 10 years. They would also raise the top marginal tax rate to 52% on income over $10 million. That would raise about $700 billion over the next 10 years. Now, remember, this is a marginal tax. I know conservatives like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk want to lie to you and exploit you by pretending that they either don't know or that, more importantly, they think that you're too stupid to understand what a marginal tax rate is. Now, if you don't know, and a lot of people don't, and that's okay, basically marginal taxes mean that, for this example, the 52% rate kicks in on every dollar after you hit $10 million in income. So anything below that is taxed at a lower level. If you were making $29,000 a year, you are not touched, you are not affected. Now, it would also, by the way, replace the cap on the state and local tax deduction with an overall dollar cap of $50,000 for a married couple on any and all itemized deductions. Now, this is a bit more in the weeds, a bit more complicated. But look, here's the thing. Trump already got rid of the state and local tax deduction, by the way, in the Trump tax cuts. That's why people in both New York and California now end up paying more in taxes effectively because they're not able to take those SALT deductions. So that's already gone, right? Bernie Sanders, he's not going to bring it back, but instead, he's going to allow you to have a $50,000 deduction, right, for a married couple on older itemized deductions. And again, this gets into the weeds in the tax laws, and unless you kind of do your taxes yourself, it's a little bit more difficult to understand. And not everybody uses itemized deductions as well. But nonetheless, they said that you would raise about the country would raise about $400 billion over the next 10 years. Taxing capital gains is another way. And they want to tax it at the same rate as income from wages, which right now, capital gains is taxed a lot less than regular wages. Not only that, but they would crack down on gaming through derivatives, like-kind exchanges, and the zero tax rate on capital gains passed through on bequests, right? So that would raise about $2.5 trillion over the next 10 years to go for Medicare for all. He would also enact for the 99.8% Act, which returns the estate tax exemption to the 2009 level of $3.5 million. They would close loopholes, increase rates on progressively, including by adding a top tax rate of 77% on estate values in excess of $1 billion. Now that is bound to make rich people very unhappy because the estate tax is one of those things where it's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's the death tax. They're going to tax us twice. They're going to tax me when I die. That's actually not true at all. It's a really, really ridiculous talking point. In reality, what the estate tax does is that when you die, right, that money gets passed on, of course, to your heirs, to your children, right? That's if you don't give it away to charity and things like that. Now, these heirs who didn't work for that money will get taxed on that money when they inherit it. So again, they didn't earn that money and they're actually getting taxed on it for the first time. And so the person who earned the money in the first place gets taxed once. So understand that there is a false conservative narrative around this entire thing. The estate tax, by the way, is not going to affect 99% of you. There's very, very few states here over that much money that will be subject to the estate tax. Now, since there is not a lot of estates, it really won't raise a lot of money. Actually, about $336 billion over the next 10 years is how much they would raise from increasing the estate tax. Now, they would also enact corporate tax reform and reverse the Trump tax cuts for the rich and corporations. Now, it would go from 21% back up to 35%, which is where it used to be during the Obama presidency. Now, that would raise $3 trillion, right? And by the way, rolling back the Trump tax cuts for corporations, it's not going to hurt corporations. You know what they've done with that money? They've used it to buy back their own stock and increase CEO compensation. That's all it is, right? And so I'm sorry, raising that back is actually a good idea because it's not going to hurt business and it's not shown to have hurt businesses. Now, and by the way, cutting the taxes hasn't shown to help the businesses either. There are still places that have decided to shut down and move to even lower tax havens, right? So now that $3 trillion, as I said, one of it, $1 trillion would actually fund Medicare for all. The rest would actually go to the Green New Deal. And so now, by the way, the Green New Deal and healthcare are actually linked. In fact, a lot of Sanders' policies are linked with each other. And so they're very interconnected and interdependent in being able to work. So now there's another one here, and that's a wealth tax. They would use $350 billion in the amount raised from the tax on extreme wealth to finance Medicare for all. So that's a lot of detail. Is that enough for you, CNN? Is that enough? It should be noted that right now, we in America pay twice as much per capita as Canada for healthcare, who has a single payer system. So, I mean, we would see massive savings as overhead is, of course, is cut to Medicare levels, right? You don't have that massive bureaucratic bloat that you do in private health insurance. No middlemans, or no middlemen, I should say, and no advertising costs or executive bonuses to worry about or anything like that. So it would make healthcare administration far more efficient, which saves a ton of money. It also saves your doctor time since they don't have to spend their time on the phone with the health insurance company to try to figure out what they're going to cover, what they're not going to cover, to try to haggle something out. No, the doctor can actually spend more time on you, making sure that your health needs are met. That's it. So there you are. That is a detailed breakdown of how exactly Bernie Sanders plans to pay for Medicare for all. Hopefully, we will never see that question again. But sadly, I don't think they will stop asking that question. But if they do, you can show them this video. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.